Hey, welcome to Handi Quilter Watch and Learn. I'm Kim Sandberg, and with me today is
Kristina Whitney.
We're both studio educators here at Handi Quilter, and today we're going to talk about something that we really have a lot of fun with, that we love to use. We're going to talk about editing designs in Designer. And just a reminder, I know that a lot of you'll hear Designer and you'll think, oh, that's for digitized quilting. Well, not always. You can absolutely use the software too to create stencils or panographs. So if you're a free motion quilter, you can still do all this stuff too. Yep. So let's get started. We want to talk about editing points. You've actually gotten quite a few questions about this lately, right?
Yes. So let's go ahead and look at my screen here. So I've got these beautiful curves here.
I love it.
I'm going to go into my edit tool or my reshape. And now I've got these little blue anchor points. And there are different types of anchor points.
Right.
And depending on what kind of anchor point you use, that determines how the line between those anchor points is shaped.
Right.
So I'm going to just right click on one of these anchor points. And you'll notice if you come down here, we have different options.
Right.
We have a line point, which I just accidentally changed it to.
But look what it does to it totally changes it. We lose that nice curve.
Yep.
Got some straight lines in there now.
So that pink line coming in and out of that point is a straight line. And you can also see the previous line before I did that change. So I'm just going to go ahead and undo that real quick and get back to where we were.
Okay.
So again, right clicking on that anchor point, we have line, we have a cusp, we have smooth, and we have symmetrical. And those are the 4 different types of anchor points that we have. Okay. So let's dive in just a little bit. So the line. You'll notice that the line does not have what we call handles.
Right.
So let's look at the point before and the point after. And they have handles coming off of them. And that's this little like kind of dotted line. It's kind of hard to see probably, but it's got a little square at the top.
Right.
And those handles allow you to manipulate the line. So with a line point,
right,
you do not have those anchors.
Right.
Or those handles.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's go down to this guy. And I'm going to change this one to a cusp point.
Okay. So what is a cusp point? What does that mean?
So let's get into that.
Okay.
So a cusp point is one where you can change the line going into it and out of it independently.
Oh, okay.
So if you watch, I've got 2 handles that are coming off of that anchor point. If I click on this top one, I can manipulate the positioning of that line. I can stretch it out or shorten it. And the fun thing is, as I'm doing that, this anchor point down here, or sorry, excuse me, that handle down there is not changing.
Yeah, it stays in place.
They are completely independent. So if I come down to this one, I can change that one independently.
Very cool.
So that is your cusp point.
Okay.
I'm going to jump over to this guy over here, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to choose smooth.
Okay. Oh, that totally changed that line now.
It did. And as I pull on this handle here, I can stretch one side of it out really far, and you notice the other side's not stretching, but as I rotate, both sides rotate equally.
It keeps that curve like centered on that anchor point, doesn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
So that one you have options to do this independently. This is dependent on both sides, or both sides are dependent on that.
Okay.
Okay, let's click over here, and we are going to go down to symmetrical.
Okay.
Now as I click on this handle, as I stretch it out, both of them stretch at the same rate. As I rotate, both of them rotate at the same rate.
Cool. So it's keeping that symmetry.
Correct. So 4 different types of anchor points.
Right.
Each of them has their time and their purpose. So Kim, I know you've got a design that's open on your screen. Let's show how changing those anchor points is going to really affect an actual design.
Hey, this week Kim and Kristina are showing you how to use ProStitcher Designer. I hope you're enjoying that, and if you haven't given it a try yet, you really should. Did you know that you can download that for free on the website? Just go to ProStitcher.com, go to Designer, and there's a trial version. You can download your computer and try it out if you'd like. We also are having a sale, a special on this week. It's $100 off. That sale goes through this Saturday, and check it out. That's available on ProStitcher.com, or check with your local retailer.
Actual design.
Yeah, so this is a design that's in the ProStitcher library. So if I come up here to my first point, do my right click and choose line, you can immediately see how it changed that shape. It means that my line is going to be straight coming off of this one. The reason why I've still got a curve there is because the other anchor point that it's matching up with has a curve. But as it comes into that point, it makes it nice and straight.
And I love how it shows the original shape and the change. How do you get that original shape to go away?
So there's a couple ways you can do it. The easiest way is just to hit enter on your keyboard. But if you don't have a keyboard attached, like for example, you're doing this on a tablet, you can always do a right click and click on this update path right up here at the top. And that will update the path. It will remove that ghost line. That's what we call those ghost lines. But it is nice because it makes it really easy to see the changes, how much you're actually changing it. One of my favorite things about Designer that I love is I can always come up here and click undo. Yeah. So if I decide I did not like what I just did, that nice little change, all I have to do is click undo and it just snaps it right back to where it was.
Yeah. Another way to get rid of the two lines, the new one and the old one, it's just to click off of the design.
Exactly,
so.
exactly.
And there's lots of different ways.
Lots of different ways to do the same thing, yeah. So let's come over here to this next anchor point, and I will change this one to a cusp. Now, this is something that I think is fun to do with a cusp, is I can actually take this one side and shorten it up, and I can actually basically pop that handle right back on that point. And this allows me to have a curve coming in, and then I can actually make a straight line here. So if I turn this other one here into a line, I now can have a straight line on that side. A curve coming into it at that point, it turns into a straight line, which is great to be able to do. I'll double click on that again, and you can see that I can still manipulate the curve on the other side with that cusp. So we'll see how pretty I can make this design look here.
Looking fabulous right now.
We'll hit enter. Another little fun thing that you can do with these anchor points. So if I change this one to a smooth, and I'm just going to hit my enter, and then let's click on this to get my little handles back. Watch this. I can actually add a little twist to my design. Isn't that fun?
That is fun
to be able to do that, and I can change the size of that curve and work on some different things with it. And this is when I'm doing the smooth. Now, if I was to change that to symmetrical, I start losing. I still have that twisty ability, but I can't. It's always going to keep it symmetrical, based like centered on that specific point, which is fun. I always think it's really, really fun to play with these points. Another thing to remember is you can actually just grab a line. You can click on the line and you can even move it. And that line will work the way that it moves is based on the type of points that are on both ends of that, the anchor points on both ends of that. So you can see I can kind of have a little fun with that too, just playing with that, turning it into more of a fun ellipse. We can really make a very creative, special design here. What do you think, Kristina? Want to put that one on your next quilt?
I'm ready to sketch it out. Yep.
Let's do that. So anchor points are really great. And this is one where we always get the question, well, how do I know which point is the best one to use? Well, sometimes you just have to do a little experimenting.
Yep.
If you know that you really want to keep that nice symmetrical curve, use symmetrical. If you know that you've got a curve coming in and then you want it to turn into a straight line, use a cusp.
Yeah.
You're doing straight lines, use line. And then smooth is when you want to keep curves rolling there. So I know for me, sometimes when I'm actually creating a design, I'll just draw everything with like one tool, and then I will purposely go back and edit the points to get what I want. Do you ever do that?
I do that all the time. I find it's easier just to do like a line and just
go
drop
back and
those
change
points and then go in and edit them. And it's really nice because you can pick multiple points, and you're going to show that in a little bit.
Yep.
So one thing that I do want to point out is we're going to switch over here to my screen for a second. If I click on one of the anchor points, you'll notice that I've got handles on the ones before and after. So
just on the one side.
Yep. Actually, that one's
well, when
that
you
one
click,
is a
when you click on it to move that one, then it activates that one as the center. So yeah.
So you can use both of them, but that's also a great way if you have a lot of points that are close together or overlapping and you can't quite get the right point. If you click on one that's maybe down here, it will activate the handle on the next point that you're trying to get to.
That's a good tip.
And you can use that as a way to get that handle.
That's a really good tip. Now, what if I've got a point there that I just want to get rid of that point? How do I get rid of a point, an anchor point?
One way to do it is to just right click on the point and then come down here and hit delete. Another way is you can click on that point and just use the delete button on your keyboard.
Very cool. Yeah, because sometimes you just want to get rid of that extra point, try to smooth things out, get rid of a little something funky that you did in a corner or whatever.
And you can do the same thing in reverse. If you want to add a point, just right click on the line where you want to add it and go on and add a point.
Add a point, exactly. That's so great.
And then you can change. If you look at that, oh, it changed. When I clicked on that point, to know that that one is the active one, it turns into a square. You'll notice up here I have a square because that was a line point.
Right.
But the little square is the line point. The bigger square is the one that is active that you are working with.
Yeah. And it also, the one that's active that you're working with has handles on both sides of it. And then the two other ones only have a handle on one side, just to kind of show you how angles are changing as you're adjusting things.
And that will depend, because if I have a line,
that's right,
I don't have those handles.
Exactly.
But that one is active, and so I have the handle from the one before and the one after.
So you know that that's the one that's selected. Yep. That's really cool. Now, what if I wanted to select more than one point at a time?
Oh, fun.
You can do that, right?
There's lots of different ways.
I know.
Okay, so one way is, let's say I want to select this point, this point, and this point. Luckily, they're all kind of close, so I can click and drag a box around the points that I want to select.
Nice.
When I let go, all three of those are now squares and they're all selected. So if I move it, they're going to stay as they are, and all three will move together.
That's so cool. And you'll notice that there's no handles at that point, but it allows you to move a whole group of designs out at one time. And where would you use that by chance? I actually have an example of that one.
Let's see your example.
So
before you show that example, can I show one other way?
Go for it.
Because not all the points are always going to be right next to each other. And sometimes you'll try to draw a box, but it pulls in one point that you don't want. So another way to do it is click on the one that you want to select and then hold down your control key. And then you can come over and select maybe this one and that one. And now you've got all three of those selected, and you can make changes to those three all at the same time.
That's really cool. So if I wanted to at this point, could I do a right click and change all of those to a different, look at that. That's so cool.
They're all line points.
You can change those anchor points.
And that's easily. Great. You know how you were talking earlier about when you're designing, you just use one tool?
Yeah.
And then you go back. You can select a whole bunch of different points and change them all
at the
to the same type of anchor point in one fell swoop.
Which is so nice. So nice, especially if you're working on something a little more complicated.
Okay, let's see what you've got.
So on my screen here, I've got a design that's from the Pro Stitcher library. It's actually one from the Christy Dillon folder. And I actually recently was doing I was using this in a quilt, and I needed to pull out just the end of these feathers. So this was like the perfect opportunity. I very carefully drew a square just like that. And then I grabbed them and I just needed to move them out just a little bit. I just needed to stretch that feather, and you can kind of see my ghost line there. I just needed to stretch that feather just a little bit to make it fit. And it was so nice to be able to select multiple points at one time, move them all, and keep that perfect curve, because, you know, feathers, sometimes you have to be kind of careful with them. If you start playing with different angles on them, they start
mess them up.
Yeah, they start looking not so pretty. And so having that option is just fantastic.
So the reason that you were trying to change that, what was the reason for that?
So, okay, so I've got another design here. Okay, I'll show you. So I have, in red here is my area, okay? So I had this design that I brought the area in and it wasn't quite fitting. And I tried skew in Pro Stitcher and it was a no-go. It did not work. So what I needed to do was just kind of move things just a little bit so that it would be inside this line here. So I selected my design with my shape. On this one, I just grabbed this line and I pulled it in a little bit, but then I still wanted to keep that channel along there. So I was able to go along and hold down my control key. I was able to go along here and select a bunch of these anchor points down along here.
Oh, I'm so excited to see what you're doing here.
And then I was able to just grab that and pull them all back at the same time. Oh,
I think you have to hold the control key
I
down
do
the whole
have to.
time.
I have to hold.
I've done that many times.
I lifted my finger just a little bit too soon off of the control. So we'll see if I can get all of these in one fell swoop. I've got a couple of these that are stacked on top of each other. They might not move as well as they should. So I did that. And then I was able to just, can you see how that's just adjusting the whole thing? And then when I hit enter, I got that nice, and you can see I've got a few points I need to move there, but I was able to get that nice channel back and keep that right along the edge so that it just fit perfectly in that area. So it's so nice to be able to have this editing capability when all of the tools I was using in Pro Stitcher, although they're great and they do work really well, every once in a while you run into limitations. So it's so nice to be able to just do that.
Because the area that you're working with on a quilt top isn't always the perfect area of the design that you want to use.
Even though, I mean, you can see that it's essentially the same area. I mean, it's pretty darn close, like it echoes the same shape and stuff. The way it was designed, it just didn't have quite as deep of a curve right in here as what the pattern was, the way that I pieced it. And who knows, maybe I took a little bit of a bigger seam there or something.
Or they might have just had different templates when they were making a quilt.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's lots of classic quilt designs out there, double wedding ring being one of them. We've actually made a few this last year, and we've learned that there are many different patterns with many different sizes and shapes for all those nice curves and stuff. And although they visually look the same, when you start plugging in patterns like this, you realize the differences. They don't quite fit. So what else do you have to show us, Kristina?
Okay, well, we've had a lot of people asking us about auditioning using Designer.
Yes.
So I'm going to show you how to bring a backdrop in and how to actually use that.
Oh, cool.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my tabs and I'm going to make sure I have tools selected. And then in the ribbon here, I'm going to come over to my backdrop tool and I'm going to click on that. And it takes me to, let's see, this is my desktop.
Okay.
So I can bring in, since we're talking about double wedding rings,
hey, there
I'll
we
bring
go.
that one in.
That's perfect.
Okay. So it takes any image. It's a JPEG.
PNG or a PNG.
PNG.
Not a PDF.
Yep.
Not a PDF.
Yep. So it has to be the right file format, and then it can bring it in. And this is my backdrop right now. So if I come over to my side here, you'll notice it says backdrop. And I've got control here that I can change the size of the backdrop, the scaling, I can rotate it. But this is the one thing that I always do is adjust the lightness.
Right.
I'm going to use my little slider and drag it over a little bit more to the light side and hit apply. And then as I put designs on it, I can actually see those designs a little bit better. I'm
especially with that black. I imagine a little bit harder to see the design over the top of the black, right?
Correct, yeah. But now I can go in and pull in a design. And I'm going to go into the Pro Stitcher library, but I'm going to go down to, this is the design that I actually use. Schmeiden, I can never say it right. Blocks, and it's this double wedding ring. Oops. Cool. And notice I double clicked on the design and it pulled up a new design page. So I'm going to go back to my design page down here with my backdrop.
Right.
And I'm going to click on there and drag it over.
And drag it over.
And it'll keep it on the same page. So I could look at that and just see, okay, do I like that? Do I not?
Yeah.
And I can even make my backdrop even a little bit lighter.
A little bit lighter. So you can just see that, yeah, you can see that it's clearly designed to fit in that space. It looks really great.
Yeah, I would. I already did.
You did, because you made this quilt.
I went in and I did a little bit of editing, kind of like what you did, but let me zoom in just a little bit here. Make this a little bit bigger. So what I did was I took these anchor points and I just pulled them out just a little bit more. I've got one of my snap 2s on, so it's popping in weird, but I would turn those off and just kind of manipulate it a little bit to lengthen out these pieces. And then when I take it into the Pro Stitcher, it will fill the whole space.
It'll just fit perfectly. That's so nice. I know, I love being able to lay out the quilt ahead of time and really get an idea of how it's going to look. So if we want to take a look at my screen, I've actually got this is from a class that we taught last year. It was one of the Houston virtual classes, and we took a quilt that, and Kristina designed this, and I don't even remember what program we created it in, but anyway, we created it, and then Kristina and Kelly and we each quilted it our own way, and we auditioned the designs. And Kristina and Kelly both used preview paper to draw out their designs. And doing that to scale is really awesome so that you can really see how it's going to be. So I was actually able to do it to scale in here also. If you guys look, I have my backdrop selected, and right over here, so it's 38 by 38, which is actually the size of the quilt. So I was able to go in and change that backdrop just like you did, where you saw we changed adjust the lightness. I changed the size of it so that's actually the size. And then I was able to put my designs on top of that and do a little auditioning here. And I'll lighten up my backdrop a little bit so you guys can see them. And I don't know about you, but like I will do custom quilting for customers. And I love this because I'm able to do a virtual, here's what my idea is, here's what I'm thinking of doing it, snap a picture or send an email to a customer, and they're able to take a look at it and go, yeah, I really like that. Or if it's my quilt, I can print this out or have it just sit on my computer screen, and every time I walk by, I can take a look at it and go, oh, I want to change that. I want to pull this there, do a little tweaking, change things just a little bit, just to make it really work.
Yeah. So I did a similar thing, and you mentioned customer quilts. So again, I'm going to just pull in another backdrop here using my backdrop tool. And this was one of my customer quilts. And for some reason, my picture always loads sideways.
I have the same issue.
I've got this little pink button up here. I'm going to click on it.
Just rotate it.
Maybe. Maybe not. So I'm going to go over to the right-hand sidebar.
There's always more than one way to do it in Designer. One of the great things about Designer, right? Very nice.
I'm going to rotate it. Oh, now I think my machine or my computer's just being really slow. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I rotated it to get it in the right orientation. And then you can also right-click, and you've got other options here defining the scale. If your picture isn't perfectly straight or it's not, there's extra stuff on the outsides of it, you can do a define the scale, where if you say, okay,
click on that.
From here to here, I know is, I'm just going to guess, 36 inches.
Okay.
I can click OK.
And then it
will
changes
resize the entire picture. So now it's 91 by 91.
Which is actually pretty darn close to the actual size of the quilt. So once again, you're auditioning things at scale. That way also, if you save the designs from here, you went in, you've done a little editing like we've been talking about. I can save those designs, and when I take them to my Pro Stitcher or I want to print out a stencil, they're already the right size. Yeah. They're already the right size. Exactly. You don't have to go in and do any additional resizing. So it's a really, the backdrop tool is really fun. I think it's one of my favorite things to play with if I have a quilt that I'm working on. For example, this quilt here in the background, this is my double wedding ring that I made. I had a lot of fun. Quiltable had just made a new collection of designs and sent them to us and said, try it out.
Tell them what Quiltable is real quick.
So Quiltable is a website where you can buy digital quilting designs. lots of fun. They have really great, they've got club deals. Anyway, they sent this set and said, hey, I know you guys just made these double wedding rings. Would you help us test this out? Because they always need some help testing designs, because you create a design, but then you don't know, okay, how's it actually going to quilt out?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun going in, auditioning, playing with these designs. I used all of the designs from the entire collection on here. Most people would have picked like 4 and repeated. I did all of them. But it was so much fun to be able to go in and just play with that on my screen, kind of figure out how I wanted to plug them in different places. And then when I started stitching, I actually had printed out, and I had something to look at to go, okay, I'm going to do this one here, and then we're going to switch and do this one, and we'll try something different here.
Your roadmap?
So, yes, my roadmap. Exactly. It's really fun to play with.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, do we want to look at this one real quick?
Yeah, let's show us what you did with this one. Have you actually gotten this one quilted yet? I know you're working on it.
It's done. It's sent back to its home.
Did you take pictures of it? I haven't seen pictures of it.
I have pictures of it.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to bring in this design, and I'm going to zoom in so that we could see. So I can reposition it just a little bit here. I can use these little points here to resize it.
Very nice.
And again, this picture is not perfectly straight.
Right.
It's not straight on, which the more straight on that you can get the picture, the better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was able to take that design and take a picture of this screen, send it to my customer, and have her say yay or nay.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier than stitching something out and then having your customer say, I don't like that, and having to unpick it.
Yeah, nobody likes to do that.
Saves a lot of time, whether it is for customers or for yourself.
Exactly.
So great ways that we can use designer not only to create designs, but to edit existing designs and to also preview designs. And you also mentioned making stencils.
Yeah.
So great program that has lots of applications.
It does. It's just a lot of fun. A lot of fun to use, a lot of possibilities out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Just a little bit. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining us this week. We always appreciate you watching. We would love to see what you're doing with designer. And, also, how do you decide what kind of designs you're going to put on your quilt? We'd love to see how you do that. We know there's lots of different ways. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and have fun quilting this week.